Hello again, everybody. This is Dan Clouser, and welcome back to the Journey of My Mother's Son podcast. Today I'm joined with Chris Carr, who is the founder of One Point Mentorship. Chris, thanks for joining me today.
Hey, Dan, thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it. When we were introduced, what you're doing with the mentorship program really resonated with me. I think I told you that in our introduction email. And I definitely wanted to have you on the show to talk a little bit more about what you're doing there. So before we get started, though, with the conversation, just, take a minute or two and introduce yourself to the audience in your own words. Who is Chris Carr today?
Sure, thanks. I've started One Point Mentorship, which it's a venture to support high school students who are transitioning into college, and that's based on kind of the last 15 years of work in higher education, kind of things that I've been seeing, that areas of where students aren't maybe getting the support that they need in key areas. So that's kind of fueled me to move off on my own to start this new venture. And it's kind of so I had a part of my academic journey was getting my PhDs. I had this interest in Russian literature. I got a PhD in Slavic Studies, and that was based on I had lived overseas and kind of learned the Russian language, and that was kind of a personal interest that had developed. And then at the same time, I was always teaching writing courses. My first teaching job here was teaching writing at a community college in New York City, where I'm from, and I love teaching writing, and that stayed with me through my graduate program and um, into the last position that I had at Brown University the last 6 years in the fellowships office, which is supporting students that are applying for like the Rhodes Scholarship or the Fulbright Scholarship, really competitive um, fellowships, and that which involves them like kind of to really get really clear on what they want to do and put together, kind of articulate themselves in their materials and help them along this process of which is really intense, really an intense application process. So like that last experience really took, in terms of my own vision, what I want to do, like it took me kind of out of the classroom, like not just focusing still on academics and especially writing, but also working with with students to develop a broader vision for themselves and to learn how to teach them not only what that is, but how to implement that, like how to actually make it come to reality in their lives, especially when they're at this key age in their life, like 18, 19, 20 years old, where I'm a part of the things that I've been learning. You mentioned the leadership skills, like things that I've been learning in my adult life that I would love to have known in 18, 19, 20. And that's part of the other reason fueling this is to give, really like help students to not, yeah, not pay the tax, not have to go through all the, maybe some of the things that I have to really get the kind of springboard to where they want to be in life.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And I think it's so important at that age because, everybody's throwing, all this stuff at these kids at that age, and it's so much to digest. And, most of the times it's always just about, thinking there's this one size fits all mentality to how we go about life. Um, so for you, coming with a background in higher education to be able to, allow them and offer them different paths and making them understand that it isn't one size fits all, and we're all individuals and we all have our own path to whatever we define success as. So you know tell me a little bit about what was the inspiration behind starting the program, outside of what you just talked about in your introduction. What was the real inspiration to wanting to lend these kids a hand?
Yeah, I think one of the things that you just mentioned is like, we have, there's kind of like this assumed path, right? We go like, if you're on the path to college, it's like high school, college in 4 years, get a job, house, family, save for retirement. This is the kind of path that we're all on, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that, with that path. It's, we have kind of all follow that path in some way, but it's really easy to just fall into, here's this thing that I have to do, or here's this thing that people around me are pressuring to do, or everyone else around me is doing, or even if when you're going to school, just study certain things, right? Like my parents want you to be a certain profession, or like that certain salaries are associated with certain professions, with especially with the high cost of college these days. So it was kind of just seeing how many students, even at a school like Brown University where I was, a lot of students that still don't know exactly what they want to do. They're unclear, and I think the opportunity of college, like it presents such an amazing chance for growth. And I think that there's so much anxiety around pre-professionalization and specializing, like declaring. Of course, you have to declare a major and find a college is part of the reason for colleges like to find a profession, right, and to find a path in that way. But I think there's such a pressure for students to figure out everything at age 18, and I think that's I know that's the way I felt, and that was a before smartphones and internet and all the added anxiety. I read all these articles about how much anxiety there is around in high school kids, and there's admissions are more competitive and it's way more expensive, and there's all these things that are putting a lot of pressure on them to do certain things, and it's yeah, in the long run, I think when you're 18, you don't have the perspective of being 40 or 50 and being in a place that you don't want to be. I think it's easy to think I have a lot of time, right? Or and I have this thing, and whatever I study is going to be my job, and that's I figured out my life. And I think that's kind of where, yeah, maybe for the short term that's okay, but in the long run, there might be a lot of issues come up down the road with like, okay, did I really do the thing that I really love to do?
Yeah.
And find a way to do that. So
Yeah. And I think,
yeah, so that's one of the big things is like just yeah, again, just all the pressure to like find a specialization at such a young age is something that some people are ready for, and a lot of people aren't. I know I definitely wasn't at that age.
and that was something I found even in the youth sports realm, so to speak, is again, that specialization. Like, you know, you'd have a kid that was, 11 or 12 years old, and you have some people telling them, oh, you should only play baseball, or you should only play football, or you should only play basketball, which is so completely and totally insane. One of the things that we always did was encourage kids to play multiple sports because it made them, so well rounded. So this whole concept of in society where everybody thinks there has to be the specialization is really frustrating to me because we are all such complex human beings and such complex creatures that to say that, this is one thing, I mean, like sometimes I like chocolate, sometimes I like vanilla, you know? So, God created us to be these, incredibly unique and complex creatures, so to go through this whole thing of trying to, you know, form this cookie cutter of what everybody should be just drives me insane. So I love the fact that you are letting these kids know like there's more than one way to skin a cat, so to speak. And that's very refreshing, especially coming from someone who's been in higher education, because quite frankly, most people in higher education feel as though that is the only route. So, being there and probably around a lot of colleagues who are pushing that narrative, how tough was it for you to fit in to say, well, wait a second, this was right for this kid and this kid and this kid, but this may not be right for this kid. So what was that like for you?
Yeah, you kind of hit the nail on the head as a part of one of the reasons why I did. Yeah, not that students, not that there wasn't like a really obviously good intentions to serve students, but I just felt like there were areas that students weren't being served. There's so many resources, say for in high when you're not going through the admissions process, like actually applying to schools. There's all this support students get when applying, which schools to apply to, et cetera. And then there's all these resources when they get to campus, all these things available to them, all these different support services and opportunities. But if you don't really know who you are, you can't access all those things. So I think the area that I kept kind of seeing, and I was working with really high performing students, like at an Ivy League school, students that are applying for the Rhodes Scholarship. Like it's not necessarily um, I love working with those students at the same time. Like what I wanted to shift to work to weren't sure where they were going, and I think that my path kind of fits right in along with that as well. Like the way my career has turned out, but I just felt like the students weren't getting that support, and they necessarily can't. Like the colleges can't really give each student that kind of individual support, And I think it's important, for students to like find somebody who's not a family member and not an employee of the college that they go to really be their ally and helping them to build to set the foundation for their life. Like to not to figure out who they are now and forever set in stone, but figure out who they are right now and also understand that college is an opportunity, not just college, but life is an opportunity, not just to find your place and stay there, but to keep growing and because you're going to be a different person at age 40 as you are now at age if you're 18, 19, 20 years old, you're not going to be like that forever. Your interests are going to change. So I think it's teaching students how to tap into who they are so they can not just get on a good path for right now, but later on they can repeat that process and learn those leadership skills. Like how do I really figure out where I'm going? Or maybe, maybe students might do something for 10 years and at age 30, I want to do something different. How do you shift? And some people stay in things they don't really belong in or stay, can stay somewhere for a long time where maybe you've outgrown a certain place. So like teaching students how to develop those skills at that young age is something that I became really passionate about because I thought it was an area that a lot of students weren't getting that support unless they happened to luck into having a family member or a mentor or someone that really told them these things. Like a lot of students weren't getting that from what I was seeing, even at an Ivy League schools. I imagine that how many schools there are across the country, how many students there are that are really going through this process because they're told they have to go to college and they don't really know exactly what they're doing, and it might be fun socially, but where they, maybe not really sure where they're going, and a lot of students that maybe don't know how to ask for help, don't really know what to do, and they get kind of overwhelmed by being away at school and all the freedom. So there's a lot of things that go into it. It's not just the academics. I think there's such a focus on finding an academic path, but if you're away for the first time in your life, like all these other like your all the personal and social things and extracurricular things are all intertwined. They're all connected into one experience that the students are having, and I think that it can be overwhelming for students, and if they don't ask for help, you can get into trouble really quickly. I was really surprised to read the statistic that only 41% of students, full-time college students, finish in their degree in 4 years, only 40%. So we assume like, right, high school, college, 4 years, get a job, but like only out of those students, like only not even half of them finish in 4 years. And after 6 years, it's only goes up to 60% that
Wow.
have completed a degree. So you think of all the time and money and it's such a fertile time and as a person's life that they're maybe not taking advantage of the experience because they again, like maybe they get lost or don't know what they're doing or don't know how to ask for help. So that's really what I just see that as an opportunity. I saw this as a place where students weren't getting the support that they needed. And so that's kind of why I shifted from the position I had into this new venture.
Yeah, I love that. And again, we don't know what we want to do for the rest of our lives when we're 18 years old. I mean, I look at myself. I mean, I didn't go to college. I went to a trade school to become a recording engineer. I thought I was going to either do, live sound at concerts or become a record producer. And, you know, I value the time that I had and the education that I got there, but that's not the career path that I ended up taking. It's funny now, 30 plus years later, I'm using some of those skills that I learned for editing podcasts and stuff like that. So it's still a value of me now, but I just didn't take that path. And then I went on. I ran this nonprofit youth sports organization that I founded for 30 years. And if you'd have talked to me in 2018, I would have told you that that's what I would be doing till the day I died. And
Hmm.
then all of a sudden a year later, I feel this calling to sell all of our stuff and move into an RV and double down on my writing and getting more books out there and telling stories through podcasting. So the fact that we put into these kids' heads that you're supposed to do the same thing for the next 40 or 50 years of your life is just total insanity to me. So again, it's so
Hmm.
refreshing what you're doing because it's just not what most kids are being told. So what was it again? I mean, you went through the whole process, and we're going down this road for so many years. Was there a particular student or a particular instance that said, this is something that needs to be addressed? There's more than one way. Like what was there one specific moment that made you say, I got to do something about this?
Yeah, that's a really good question because it's funny. Like you mentioned, like using skills you learned a long time ago that maybe you didn't think you're going to use, and then you end up using them later. And like when I'm in my mid 40s right now, so looking back, things kind of make sense. Oh, I got that from that experience and that from that experience. But along the way, I'm like, how is this adding up to something? Like, where is this going? Kind of sometimes I having that feeling, and it was kind of a combination of things. I got my first teaching position here in the States was at a community college. So I was always kind of like I love that. It was my I had a bunch of jobs before that, and like it was the first job I really loved, and it was my first full-time teaching job, and I loved it. And I loved being of support to students that maybe weren't getting any support at all, like anywhere. Um, so I really loved working in that environment. It was it was it was challenging in some ways, and but it was really satisfying. And then when I went back for my PhD and I was teaching and working at Brown University, it's just a completely different experience. And I was, because a part of it was like I loved working with those students. They were so amazing and they always they were really invested in their own path and like knew had all these ideas for what they want to do, which was great. And I loved doing it. At the same time, I was like, I kind of want to be I had in the back of my mind be of service to students that maybe aren't getting don't have access to all the things that maybe Ivy League students have and stuff like that. I still had my my initial back and part from personal background coming from just kind of a working class like background, just wanting to support students that weren't getting support. And then so that was kind of part of it, just the feeling that I had all throughout, the last bunch of years, but also the another thing was my position at Brown after I finished my PhD was supporting students in this way of more broadly around mentorship, like helping them develop this vision. So like I was so focused on an academic experience, like teaching writing in the classroom and helping students on their academic path. And this last position really helped me, or it gave me the chance to help students see the bigger picture of their lives and not just their academic path. Like, how does that fit into the rest of their life, or how do other things that they're doing in their life fit in with their academic and professional path? So that kind of allowing working with that bigger picture really also drew me to wanting to help students with just more than academics, to help them really find their way as they're going to college and support them so they can have the best experience that they can have. Like part of that would be academic, but it's a lot of other things as well. More like helping them develop that broader vision and something that will guide that like will kind of get them up in the morning and motivate them to better themselves in different areas of their life. So it became more than just academics for me. So it wasn't necessarily one moment, but it was like that kind of combination of really wanting to be of service and the have the most impact as I could possibly have for students that really needed the support. And then this broader just realizing how many students like because you're kind of like students get into college, right? They get there's all this work around admissions. They get into the school and they're kind of like left to figure it out on their own. And I think that a lot of that works for some people, but not for a lot of people. And I think that that core attention, that core mentorship is something that students weren't getting. So yeah, again, I wouldn't say it was one moment, but it was just kind of just a general feeling from the different experience that I was having that this is where there was a big opportunity and a big need. I think the biggest need.
Yeah. Yeah. So how does a kid find out about your program, or is there a process, an application process that they have to go through to get involved, or tell me about that.
Yeah, no, it's just contact with me right now. There's kind of a website is in the works. For the time being, it's just call or text or email. Just get in touch, and we do an initial consult and see where the student is. Like I work with students at different like some are juniors in high school, some are seniors in high school, some are already in college. So depending on where they are and what the needs are, um, I also not exclusively, but also like especially students that are maybe dealing with a lot of anxiety or like have a lot of maybe limiting beliefs or they're things that getting in the way or they're not opening up. That's kind of another thing that another type of student that I like to work with to help them to really put themselves out there and manage like the freedom of being away and really finding the opportunities that are best for them. But they get so I could work with like different they're all in the same age group, but it could be they could still be in high school, they could already be in college. Um, it could even be outside of college, like if they finish and are young adults that don't know exactly where they're going. That's also another opportunity. So these things like these leadership skills, like the ones that you mentioned with the sports organization, is like the things that I feel like you're gonna learn one way or another. It's good to like learn them now, or you can kind of into them the hard way later on. So it's really good for students that are struggling, or students that are high, maybe students that are doing really well as well. We can always find a way to go to the next level from wherever the student is. So I really like to meet the student where they are, and just looking forward to hearing from anybody that could use this type of support, or even just I do a free consult with everybody, if they give a call. So even just have a conversation about some of these issues, some of these questions that you might have, and then we could see if it's a good fit to work together.
Yeah, love it. So, Chris, is there anything that we didn't cover that you'd like to make the listeners aware of?
I think, well, yeah, I think we probably touched on it a little bit, but just seeing, I think just reiterating that this is like a process of like colleges. Part of it is the professionalization, finding a path professionally, but it's really like kind of changing the mindset to look at this as the beginning of a student's like adult journey, a personal journey into life, and like really taking care of all the different areas of their life, and to ask for help. Professionals get coaching, and I don't know. I always think of that like pro athletes that have a million different coaches and chefs and agents and people taking care of everything for them so they could focus on what they're good at. So like why not, young people that are just starting out, if the top people have a lot of coaching, like I feel like people at the bottom should as well. And I think seeking that out sooner rather than later is something that's good, especially students are coming home for the holidays. Maybe they have a long break, maybe they're going to be back at home, and so I think it's something to really like to consider, to find that support, even if the student is doing well, by any of the markers whether it's grades or something or anything like that, and just realizing that like coaching really adds a lot to developing a vision and sticking to it, the accountability, setting goals, like meeting them and moving through certain obstacles. So, and I think also just being open, like if you're a parent and your students are coming home, just like giving them space to talk, like letting them talk about their experience. And I know that there might be a lot of pressure, like, oh, that it costs this much, and are you getting, what are the grades like, and but really asking them about the experience, like letting them to talk about what is actually going on with them, and if they do need support, ask for it sooner rather than later.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's important because, you know, we all at every level of our life, we needed someone to lean on. Someone helped us get where we are today. And that could have been multiple people at different times in our lives. But at the end of the day, you know, nobody gets to where they are on their own. There's,
Right.
so many other people and so many other influences that help get you to where they are. I mean, one of the things that comes up quite often in a lot of my podcasts is the fact that, people talk about, oh, this guy or this woman is a self-made millionaire, or self-made successful this, or a self-made that. And that's completely untrue, because no one is self-made. Like, you
Yeah.
need literally a team of people around you supporting you in different aspects of what you do. So
Hmm.
that for sure. So you talked a little bit
Yeah.
about how people get involved, but what, specifically if they want to get out, if you want to throw your information out there, how they can find you on the internet, feel free to let people know how they can find you.
Yeah, sure. And I don't know if will there be like a description somewhere to put some things, or just
Put it all in the
we can
show
put,
notes for you as well. Yep.
yeah. So you can find me. I could put my LinkedIn page on there, in that, maybe in the description, and then you can just give a call or text 917-270-6721, or email, right now, christopher.h.carr@gmail. So it's CHRISTOPHER.H.CARR@gmail. And then there's a website, onepointmentorship.com, will be up, and it's not up and running now, but that's in the works. But for the time being, that's how you can reach me. And I would love to hear. Yeah, because like, I mean, like you said, like people not doing things on their own. And I think working, like students, even just building an advising team when they're out, like knowing where their support is, building a support team, whether it's friends, or knowing where health services on campus is, knowing like knowing all the different areas of your life, knowing people that you can go to for support, knowing that you're not alone in whatever students are going through.
Yeah. Yeah. Love that. Love that. Chris, that brings us to our final question. As you know, the subtitle of the podcast is Many Little People in Many Little Places, which comes from the opening lyrics of a Michael Franti song, which go, when many little people in many little places do many little things, then the whole world changes. So it's one of the little things that Chris does on a daily basis to make the world a little bit better place.
Oh, wow. It's maybe not a daily, well, for myself on a daily basis. So I'm a drummer. I play music as well. And like I started to, um, I also do give like drum lessons. So I started, a friend of mine works at a school. So I started to like go in and to give lessons to the students. So that's one thing I'm doing. That's not daily, but that's something that I have started to do. And I guess a daily thing is just, you know, kind of practicing on my own, just playing just for the joy of it, like finding, um, yeah, one thing to do that really just like is fun and just for the heck of it. But like I've been wanting to find more places where I can do that for others, which, and especially like I love working with little kids is really fun, and like letting them, yeah, play around on the drums is amazing, and something I've just started doing recently that I want to find more places to do.
That's cool. That's cool. I love that. Chris, I really appreciate the conversation. This is a lot of fun, some really valuable information out there. I hope some people reach out to you because it's definitely something that's needed. And for folks out there listening, be sure to check out my other podcasts and blogs at journeymymotherson.com or danclouser.com. And while you're there, pick up a copy of my most recent book, The Journey of My Mother's Son, Volume 1. Chris, again, really appreciate you taking the time. This is a great conversation.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. It was a pleasure.
You bet.